Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I was tagged by Katrina, also known as PolynesianReader, to do the bookshelf tag, and considering I was struggling to come up with some video ideas, I thought this would be the perfect thing to do. So I will be running through the 12 or so questions and telling you about my bookshelves, because I realised that I don't often talk a huge amount about the books I already own. As you can see, I have some rather lovely shelves above me, and so you can see that in the background of my videos, but I don't talk about generally what I own, so I hope this will be interesting for you. Question number one is, how many bookshelves do you have? I actually have 2 bookshelves. I have this set of 4 shelves behind me, which I use mostly for fiction books. There are also some board games stored on the top shelf, and some activity books just behind me there, but it is mostly just fiction. And then over in the opposite corner of my room, which I will show you a little bit later on, I have a floor-to-ceiling shelf that was built by my grandfather when I was very, very young and had already shown that I would be purchasing a lot of books throughout my life, and on that is again a lot of fiction and a shelf for poetry and miscellaneous, and then at the very bottom is notebooks and larger hardback books. Question 2. How many books are on your shelves? Well, fortunately, back in August of last year, when I was starting to use Storygraph, I decided that I would just put everything I own on my owned books page on there. So at that time, it got counted up for me. I have over 150 books, which sounds like a lot, but actually if I show you my shelves, that really doesn't sound like a huge amount. I own a lot of books, and that is just books that I have logged on Storygraph. I own a lot of books that I keep a hold of purely for sort of sentimental reasons that I probably won't be rereading anytime soon. And I also have, of course, my stack of to-read books, which I don't keep on my shelves. I have a separate pile of them down there, and my rule is just that I put books on shelves once I've read them, so if you see it up anywhere, you know I've read it. Question 3 is, how do you organise your books? This is gonna sound ridiculous, but I organise my books by vibes, or by vague themes. When I started shelving my books, probably back when I was like 8 years old or something, I would just whack them on the shelves willy-nilly, and it's kind of stayed like that, except I tend to group books that remind me of each other next to each other. But because I group them by vibe, it means that shelves often end up with a similar feeling, even if they don't contain necessarily all books by the same author. In fact, I am dreadful for splitting up books by the same author. I've got some over there, some up there, you know, it sounds daft, but like, it works for me. You could ask me to pull any book from my shelf and I would know exactly where it was, just because it works for me. But it does mean that my shelves look like a bit of a chaotic mess. Equally though, I have a shelf up there just above where the camera can't see that I keep purely for series of books, and that is just so that I don't have big shelves that are sort of bisected by a series, because that was starting to get on my nerves a little bit. Question 4 is, what is the oldest book on your shelves? I have 2 answers for this. One is literally the oldest copy of a book, and also the book that was written the longest time ago, and that is a lovely copy of Macbeth that I picked up in Hay-on-Wye. We did a family holiday back several years ago now, where we visited the book village of Hay-on-Wye, which is on the border of Wales. It is a village with, I believe, over 30 bookshops, and it is, when I tell you it is a book lover's dream, I sincerely mean that. There are books purely for crime novels, purely for fiction novels, purely for poetry, and you can just go in those books and have a look, and it is truly incredible. So when I went into a specific bookshop, I can't remember which one now, and saw they had a really, really old set of Shakespeare plays. In particular, they had Macbeth, which I was studying for my GCSEs at the time. And when I looked in the front, it said that this was published, I believe, let me double check, first edition of this issue of Macbeth, printed June 1896. This book is well over 100 years old, and I just love the history of knowing this book has been in so many people's hands, so many people have looked on the, like, just, this print is so I adore it, and I own it purely because it is an old copy. I haven't read this copy. If I read Shakespeare, I tend to read it online because of course it's all there. But this copy itself, it's beautiful, and it makes me feel happy owning such an old, like, precious book. The other answer is a book that has been in my family since my mum was a kid, and that is The Talking Parcel by Gerald Darrell. This book is no longer in print, but it is just an absolutely glorious tale of some children who are taken to the mythological land of Mythologia and asked to help out because one of the mythological creatures that lives there, the cockatrices, have taken over, and Parrot, who is a talking parrot who leads them there, is determined for these kids to help them, and so they end up meeting all these different mythological creatures that are kept in the land of Mythologia because no one believes about them in the real world anymore, and it is a beautiful, silly little story, and my mum has owned this since she was a child, and it's a piece of my family's history in a way, but also just I adore the book itself. So those are my two answers for what is the oldest book on my shelves. Literally, you know, Macbeth was first written in like the 1500s, and this copy is like 130 years old or something now. And then also this, because family favourite. Question number 5 is newest book on your shelf. So I again have two answers for this. Firstly, I have the newest book that I own, which will be The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, because my significant other sent this to me shortly after Christmas, so I received it on, I think it was the 31st of December, so that is the newest book that I own, which I haven't got around to reading yet. But the newest book that I have shelved, in that I have finished reading it, so it has been given its place on my bookshelves, is Girl Made of Stars by Ashley Herring Blake. This is one that was picked for me to read by Storygraph in a video I'll be making in a little bit, but it was on my to-read pile anyway. I finished reading this 2 days ago now, I think, and oh my god, this book was incredible and it gave me a lot of feelings. I will not go into it now because that's for a later video, but just, this was incredible, and I'm very pleased to now put it on my shelf next to books that give me similar vibes to it. Question number 6, what is the longest book on your shelves? Again, two answers for this. First answer, in terms of literal page number, I own a copy of Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, which is 950 pages long. I have no idea why. It's an abnormally stumpy book, like it's just really small, which I think is why the page number is so ridiculous, but like most other editions of Order of the Phoenix are around 700 pages, so I have no idea why this one is pushing 1,000. But it is an absolute brick of a book. I don't know if I'll ever reread Harry Potter after JK Turf Rowling, so I may end up getting rid of this, but in which case that means that the longest book on my shelves is The Toll by Neil Shusterman, which is about 630 pages long, which I read in one day back in, I think, May of last year, because I was slightly obsessed with the series and so just sat down and read the whole thing in a couple of sittings. And this isn't a short book either, but equally it's nothing like, you know, almost 1,000 pages. Question 7. Shortest book on your shelf. This one is easy. It is Herland by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. This is 124 pages long, and that is the entire story. It is the slimmest book I've ever read. It took me, I think, just under 2 hours to read it. It is the story of 3 male explorers who accidentally stumble across an island of women, only women, who have existed there for centuries, reproducing by themselves, and what it is like for them to discover a society of purely females. And it's basically sort of speculative fiction about what it might be like if we lived in a female-ruled society, and Charlotte Perkins Gilman deals some pretty spectacular blows to the 3 guys who stumble across this island, and it's really, really interesting, and I would recommend it for some really, really short feminist fiction. Question 8. What is the predominant genre on your bookshelves? Contemporary YA. It's pretty much all I read. I read a fair amount of historical stuff, a fair whack of fantasy, which is surprising because I don't think of myself as someone who likes fantasy all that much, but a lot of YA nowadays sort of, There's a lot of magical realism that I enjoy, and so that sometimes makes its way into the fantasy category, but generally I would just say contemporary YA is the bulk of what I read. Question 9. Have you done a bookshelf tour? No, and I'll tell you why not. That's effort, and I really can't be bothered to go through all the books on my shelves. You've seen how long it takes me to review one book, let alone me going through everything I have read in probably the last 10 years or so. Question 10 is go on a random number generator and talk about the book that corresponds with the number. So I clicked the random number generator 3 times because initially it gave me the number 140 and I said, fuck that, I'm not counting through 140 of my books. So I clicked it again and got 99 and went, fuck that. And then I got 31 and I was like, I can do that. So I counted from the top down of my big bookshelf in the corner because I thought it would be more interesting, as those are the books you don't get to see in the background of me. And it picked Arrow by R.J. Anderson. This is a book that I read when I was probably 12 and I was going through a fairy phase. Not fairy F-A-I-R-Y, but F-A-E-R-I-E fairy. Like creepy fairies, like badass feminist fairies. I read 2 series that were like this, one of which was this series, which begins with Knife by R.J. Anderson, and the other one that begins with The 13 Treasures by Michelle Harrison. They're good books. I want to reread them this year, mostly because I don't know if I will ever reread them again, and so I kind of want to test them out, see if they're worth hanging on to, or if not, just to give them a final read and then say goodbye, because they take up a fair amount of space on my shelves. But I remember very little about this specific book, except that it is the 3rd story in the trilogy of books by R.J. Anderson about the fairies, and I really liked it when I was younger, and I know I reread it when I was about 15, I think, and I still enjoyed it, but there isn't a huge amount I can say, really, because it's been such a long time since I've read it. But hopefully I will reread it, and then maybe I can have a talk about this, because I am interested to see if this sort of proto-feminism type literature, rewriting of fairy stories, holds up to my 19-year-old brain. Question 11. Do you have fan merch or decorations on your bookshelves? Yes. I don't have any fan merch on my bookshelves, but I do have a lot of fan merch on my walls and in various other areas of my room. So as you've been able to see since I started making videos, I have 2 Harry Potter posters here. I have Undesirable Number 1, which is a poster of Harry Potter himself, and just below that, Wanted Bellatrix Lestrange. I also have wanted posters for Newt Scamander and Tina Goldstein up above my bed next to one of Newt Scamander himself. Again, thinking of taking down because fuck J.K. Rowling. What other decorations and fan merch do I have? I'm trying to think now. Ooh, I have a Six of Crows mug. I'm not really one for drinking hot drinks, so I just use mugs to hold stationery, and this one just has the names of the 6 crows down the side. I like it. So we have my little frog, which sits on top of my CD collection on the middle shelf. He doesn't have a name, but my friend bought him for me because they work in a charity shop and it was like 99p, so they put a message in my group chat with me and my friends and were just like, who wants a frog for 99p? And I went, absolutely yes please. I also have a lovely Romeo and Juliet bookend, which I use for holding up some of the books on the top shelf, and I saw this as an Instagram advert because Instagram knows me far too well and it is dangerous, and so I got that for Christmas. I also have a matching Hamlet one, which is on my other bookshelf. And then just behind me, as you can see in most videos, I have this pineapple. It looks like it should be ceramic or something, but it's actually plastic. It used to glow, but the batteries are dead, so now I just use it as ornamentation. Then on my other set of bookshelves, we have just a watering can. I don't really know why it's there. Some seashells, some painted rocks. I have 2 lovely snow globes, one of which I got in Seefeld in Austria when I went on holiday there back in, I think it was 2015 I got it. I also have a Tigger, and I've owned that since I was very young. I have a fossilised belemnite, I believe it is. I also have a jar of little cowrie shells I collected on a beach in the Scilly Isles, I think it might have been. Oh, and I have, this is the most exciting thing that I own, So, humble brag time. When I was 17, I was chosen as one of only 100 Foyle's Young Poet of the Year. It is still one of my proudest achievements to date. My poem was selected by judges, and I get very excited when I think about it, but basically it meant I got to go to the awards ceremony and hear the top 15 read their poems, and to hear the judges, who were Jackie Kay and Raymond Antrobus, talk about poetry and writing, and it was a phenomenal day. But they also had illustrator and storyteller himself, Chris Riddle, there to illustrate the poems of the top 15 people and to just keep drawing throughout the occasion. So he did a number of little doodles based roughly on what Jackie and Raymond were talking about throughout the event, and at the end he started giving them out for free, and my mum, who was with me, spotted this and went, "Come on, Kate, you have to go and get one of those." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know if I want to go over and talk to him, that's scary." Mum was like, "He's giving away free original drawings with his signature, Kate. Do you really want to miss out on that?" So I snuck up to him and was just like, "Hello, Chris Riddle, please may I have a drawing?" And he said, "Of course, what would you like?" And showed me his remaining 5 drawings, and I picked out that one, and I am very pleased with it. I think it's a beautiful drawing, and it's very, very nice to sit on my shelf of poetry books, so delighted with that one. Oh, and I guess the other decoration I have is fairy lights. I'm a basic bitch, so I put some fairy lights up there and they look lovely. And then question 12, show us your bookshelf. Here you go. Editing Kate from the future here, just to apologise for how shaky these clips are and for the fact that my phone was continually focusing and refocusing. Both clips of both shelves are like this. Apologies. All I can say is this is why you don't film YouTube videos on your phone, but yeah. When I say I had fun looking through all of the downloadable clips that my editing software allowed me to use and I could find classical music, I was delighted. Hope you enjoyed that too. That is all the questions from the bookshelf tag. Thank you very, very much to Katrina for tagging me in this. It was really, really fun. I enjoyed thinking about my answers, and I enjoyed just looking through my books and working out what is the shortest book I own, what is the oldest book I own, all that kind of thing. So thank you for tagging me. It was great fun to do. Now I have to tag 3 people myself. So, I will start by tagging Nidhi of Girl Made of Words because I've been really enjoying her videos and she has such lovely aesthetic shelves. I don't think she's done this tag yet, but equally she recently did a bookshelf reorganisation video which I really, really enjoyed watching. So, go ahead Nidhi if you want to have another look at your bookshelves, talk through them some more. Enjoy. Next, I am tagging Carol of Carol T Reads. Again, she has lovely bookshelves. I don't think she's done the tag yet, and it would be lovely to see her talk about some of her books like that. And then Liz of Galactic Reads, because she always just has such a lovely blue hue in her videos, which makes everything look lovely and, well, galactic. So I thought maybe you would like to talk about your bookshelves as well, because they always look so aesthetically pleasing in the background. So there we go, no pressure, as always. I understand tag videos are a little bit intimidating and I almost feel bad for like asking people to do tag videos, but there you go. Anyone else, if anyone else wants to do this video but has been waiting to be tagged, consider this your tag. Say you were tagged by The Pretentious Poet, here you go. And that is it. Thank you very, very much for watching. I hope this was interesting to get a little bit more insight into my bookshelves. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and comment down below what interesting books have you seen on my shelves that you might like me to talk about, because there's a lot up there that I haven't read in a fairly long time but that I want to reread, so it'd be good to know if there is anything that has caught your eye that you would like me to reread sooner and talk about. Feel free to subscribe if you want to hear me talk about more bookish things, and I will see you next time.